Rain poured down in silver sheets, turning the city into a blur of reflections and shadows. Emily's boots slapped against the wet pavement as she ran, her breath coming in ragged bursts. Her heart felt like it might claw its way out of her chest. She didn't dare look back, but she could still hear him. "Emily, don't walk away from me again." His voice, raw with rage and alcohol, echoed through the alley like a nightmare she couldn't wake from. She turned a corner, her foot slipping on the slick ground, and slammed against a brick wall. The pain barely registered. She needed to hide, now. Cars passed at the end of the alley, headlights slicing through the rain. One, a black luxury sedan, sat parked with its engine running, windshield wipers beating rhythmically. The windows were tinted, concealing whoever sat inside. For a heartbeat, Emily hesitated. Every instinct screamed to stay away. But fear made her reckless. She bolted for the car and yanked the back door open. "Please," she gasped, soaking wet, eyes wide with panic. "Can I hide in your car?" The man inside turned his head slowly. For a moment, all she saw was his silhouette, the outline of broad shoulders, a glint of a watch, a slow, deliberate movement. Then the interior light flicked on, revealing a face too calm for the chaos outside. He was older than her, early 30s maybe, with sharp, defined features and eyes that didn't seem surprised by anything. Those eyes locked onto her, assessing, cold, intelligent. "Close the door," he said, voice smooth as silk but carrying a weight that made her obey instantly. Emily slid inside, slamming the door shut. The sound of rain muted. The sudden quiet felt suffocating. She clutched her bag to her chest, shivering, water dripping onto the leather seats. "Who are you running from?" he asked after a long pause, not looking at her as he shifted the car into drive. "My ex," she whispered. He's dangerous. Please, just drive." The man's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Dangerous," he echoed, pulling the car away from the curb. "Then it seems we have something in common." Emily frowned, confused. But before she could ask what he meant, the city lights swallowed them both. The car glided through the rain-slick streets, its engine purring low like a beast beneath the hood. The city outside became a blur. Neon signs, wet asphalt, faceless pedestrians hurrying under umbrellas. Emily sat rigid in the passenger seat, her fingers twisting the strap of her bag, trying to steady her breathing. The man beside her drove with unnerving calm, one hand resting loosely on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. "Do you always get into strangers' cars?" he asked after a few minutes, his tone more curious than mocking. Emily flinched. "No, I didn't have a choice." He glanced at her briefly, his gaze sharp and unreadable. "There's always a choice," he said quietly. His words sank into the silence between them. She turned to look out the window again, watching the storm distort the city lights. He didn't ask for her name. He didn't ask where she lived. That should have comforted her, but instead, it made her uneasy. The interior of the car felt too still, too controlled. Everything about him, from his precise movements to the faint scent of expensive cologne and gunmetal, screamed danger. "I'll drop you somewhere safe," he said finally. Emily's heart lifted a little. "Thank you. I really appreciate." But before she could finish, the car veered off the main road and turned down a narrow, dimly lit lane. The world outside grew quieter, emptier. She frowned. "Where are we going?" "You said you needed to hide," he replied evenly. "I know a place where no one will find you." Something about the way he said it made her blood run cold. Rain lashed harder against the windshield as they approached massive iron gates rising out of the darkness. Beyond them stood a sprawling estate. Stone walls, glowing windows, shadows moving like ghosts. Two men in black suits stepped forward, their faces expressionless, guns visible under their coats. Emily's breath caught. "What is this place?" The man rolled down his window. The guards bowed slightly, opening the gates without a word. He turned to her then, eyes dark and calm. "It's home," he said softly. "And for now, it's yours, too." The gates clanged shut behind them with a final, heavy sound. Emily realized too late, she hadn't escaped danger. She had driven straight into it. The car rolled to a stop beneath a stone archway, the rain easing into a mist around them. Emily hesitated, staring through the window at the massive double doors ahead, dark oak carved with symbols she didn't recognize. Warm light spilled from inside, but it didn't feel welcoming. It felt like the glow of a trap. The man stepped out first. He didn't rush or look back to see if she followed. Every movement was measured, practiced, like someone used to being obeyed. When he finally opened her door, she hesitated. His hand extended toward her, palm up, waiting. "Come," he said softly, but his voice carried authority that made her legs move before her mind caught up. As she stepped out, the smell of rain mixed with cigar smoke and gasoline. The mansion loomed above her, grand, silent, and intimidating. Two men stood by the doors, their eyes tracking her every movement. One of them spoke quietly into a headset. Emily's stomach twisted. "You didn't tell me your name," she said, her voice barely steady. The man looked at her, faint amusement in his gaze. "You didn't ask." He led her inside. The entrance hall was breathtaking. Marble floors, chandeliers glittering like captured stars, paintings of stern-faced men on every wall. Everything screamed wealth, power, and something darker beneath. Emily's soaked shoes squeaked against the marble, an intrusion in a world too clean, too controlled. A woman in a black dress approached, bowing her head slightly. "Sir," she said, "shall I prepare a room?" Emily blinked. "A room? For her?" He nodded once. "Top floor. The east wing." Then, as if remembering her presence, he turned to Emily. "You'll stay here tonight. You're safe." "Safe," she echoed. "I don't even know who you are." He studied her for a long moment, then stepped closer. "Names are just words," he said. "But since you insist, call me Luca." The name rolled off his tongue like a secret. "Thank you, Luca," she murmured, though the word felt wrong in her mouth. As he walked away, men in suits appeared from the shadows, murmuring in Italian. One of them handed Luca a phone, whispering something about a shipment, a betrayal. His expression darkened. Emily froze. It clicked then. The guards, the mansion, the silence that followed his every move. She hadn't just stumbled into a stranger's home. She had walked straight into the den of a mafia boss. Emily's footsteps echoed softly down the hallway as the housekeeper led her to a guest room. Everything about the mansion felt too still, too perfect. The air smelled faintly of expensive wine and danger. Portraits of men. Luca's ancestors, she guessed, stared down from the walls, their expressions cold and watchful. When the housekeeper left, Emily sat on the edge of the bed, still shivering from the rain. Her mind raced. What was she doing here? Who was he, really? Her phone was dead, her ex was probably still out there looking for her, and now she was trapped in the house of a stranger whose calm scared her more than her ex's rage ever had. A knock sounded at the door. Before she could answer, it opened. Luca stepped inside, no longer wearing his coat. The black shirt beneath clung to him, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing a faint tattoo on his wrist, a serpent coiled around a dagger. "You should dry off," he said, his voice quieter than before. "You'll catch a cold." "I don't need your concern," she muttered, standing. "Just tell me what this place is." He studied her for a moment, then walked to the window. The rain had stopped, leaving the city lights glimmering below the estate. "This place," he said slowly, "is where people disappear when they want to start over. Or when they have nowhere else to go." Emily frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, turning toward her, "that you came to the right car tonight. Though you might not think so yet." Her pulse quickened. "You said we had something in common," she whispered. "What did you mean by that?" He smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. "Your ex hurts people because he's small. Weak. Men like him pretend to have power. I don't have to pretend." His phone buzzed. He answered with a single word in Italian, his tone suddenly cold. Emily couldn't understand what he said, but she felt the weight of it, the authority, the threat behind every syllable. When he hung up, he looked at her again, eyes softer now. "Get some rest. No one will touch you here. Not unless I say so." Then he left, closing the door behind him with quiet finality. Emily stared after him, her heart caught between gratitude and fear. She had found safety, yes, but in the arms of the most dangerous man she'd ever meet.